Alright, this video is just going to be a simple talk through of all the modifications we did to the Hawk 250, what we're doing to prepare for our roughly 10,000 mile trip, and everything else we did ever since we got the bike. So starting from the engine, we ported the head, then we also switched out the carburetor to the Navy Performance carburetor and paired that with the cone filter intake. And because we're switching with that, we didn't need the tube from this airbox anymore. So cut that off and then plastic welded it shut. So now it's just its own little compartment. And then over here, we switched out the spark plug, the factory one, with the iridium.
NGK iridium.
And then we also adjusted the valve timings. And then out of the engine, relating to the exhaust system, we gutted out the catalytic converter. After we did that, we wrapped most of the exhaust system up with fiberglass heat wrap to prevent a lot of the heat from coming up and just keeping it all in the gas just so it can come out the tip here. And we went up to about here with the wrap. That's all we had left, which is still plenty. Relating to how we wrap the exhaust pipe because of all the heat. Just in case, we also did even more heat wrapping on the brake line, some of the wire cables, and also the spark plug cable, which was actually starting to melt before we wrapped everything, which would have been quite bad. So we wrapped that, so now it's completely safe. Airbox is almost entirely wrapped, and it's sitting right above the exhaust pipe, which was one of the worries, but it's never melted, so it worked. Also, this exhaust plastic cover, the rubber I guess bushings inside here, and also partially on the inside of the plastic itself, was actually melting on our trip from here to the Key West, and it was basically coming apart. So we inserted wrapping underneath the actual cover itself to protect it. And this little cover here is also heat wrapped from the inside with some, what was this, engine enamel paint. So keeps all the heat away from my leg. It's going to be right here. Now we're on the other side of the bike, and I can't quite get under here, but under all this we switched out the oil plug to a magnetic one to collect up any metal floating around and just to let us know if there's anything going on inside. As well, we attached a little small fuel filter in line with the gas tank to the carburetor. We also did little rubber bushings on all the engine mounts. You can kind of see it here. Just took some rubber O-rings and put them in between the mount itself where the bolt goes. For the battery here, with the stock one that came with the bike, it didn't last at all. It always kept dying. You leave it for 2 days, the bike's dead. So we just went to Walmart, grabbed a Never Start battery. This one's smaller than what's designed to be in here, so we just took out some shipping foam, stuffed it in, and it's very secure, doesn't move around or anything. Super secure. And haven't had really much of any problems with this battery, just as long as you keep it trickle charged. And we have all sorts of wires coming from this with electronics and have never had an issue with it. And the stock fuses, the glass fuses that came with these, you're better off just throwing them away and replacing them with little wired fuses you have here. So now that I got this open, you can see right here, if I can focus, got some fuses, and these are a whole heck of a lot better than those glass fuses. They're more durable, and the way we got these, they're very weather resistant. Staying near the engine, we changed out to new chain and changed out the front sprocket to 17 teeth and the rear sprocket to 40 teeth for a bit more road friendly use, because we're not taking this heavy off-road, for a bit higher speed as well. and it's a stronger chain from the factory one. We also switched out the rear suspension, the rear shock suspension and spring, to a 290 millimeter length, and its max weight capacity is 1,200 pounds roughly. Also, for the front suspension, we took both forks out, drained the old fluid out, and took everything out, all the springs, everything else, cleaned it all up, added some 15 weight fork oil inside, put the spring back, and to make it a bit stiffer for better handling, we added a socket in here. It's about 3/4 inch longer than the previous insert they had in here from the factory, so that makes it a bit stiffer and provides better handling. As for the tires, we were running the Shinko tires. These are the maximum size tires for this bike. The front is 3.0 by 21. The rear is running 4.6 by 18, and inside of them we're running Pro Max heavy duty tubes with slime, and we've never had an issue with them. Also, inside the rims itself, we first cleaned it up entirely, put some silicone on the inside of these spoke caps inside the rim to prevent any fluid or water getting inside. And then after that, we used some Gorilla tape, and not just regular Gorilla tape. It's the much heavier duty one. I believe it's over there. And we wrapped the inside of the rim all around with it, just like any normal grip tape. We had to cut this in half and wrap it around on the inside. So after doing that, we're very sure that the inside is a watertight seal, no matter where we go with it. So there'd be no risk of any corrosion or damage to the tube itself or the inside of the rim. Next, on the plastics of what we added to this bike, these are all the plastics, such as the skid plate here and back over here near the chains, are all made out of cutting boards.
HMW, it's a high molecular weight cutting board, which is basically unbreakable, impact resistant. So only $10.
So after getting that, all it took was a bunch of heat bending with a propane torch just to get these into the shape we wanted. Added some holes to let the air through or any other stuff through, and on the bottom added a hole for the oil plug. We took this onto the trip to Key West and haven't had any issues with it. Protected the engine itself from some few rocks itself, like good size rocks too. And in the back here, created these chain guards. This specifically is more so to protect the front tire here, this L shape right there, because without it, with just the standard rubber factory chain guide they had here, it wasn't doing anything. And with the size of the rear tire we had back here, it was also rubbing up against the tire as we were running it. So to prevent any of that wear from happening, we added this L plastic here to keep the chain line, and we also painted it so we can see where the wear was happening, and also did the same thing to the bottom. Let me bring it up right here. So with that, we can tell where all the wear was happening and keeping the chain aligned from not hitting anything. This back plastic guard back here is to keep the chain from popping out or flying all over the place in the event that the chain comes loose off this rear sprocket. We had that experience before in the trip down to Key West, where the chain did pop off, and I'm not sure if I'm able to show it to you here. A little bit right here, there's wear on this on the wheel. That's where the chain popped off and started rubbing all over here. That was when the tension wasn't very good and also wasn't tuned very right, so the bike was running a little sporadically. So with this new plastic guard, it's there to protect that from ever happening and keeping the chain lined up. Moving on to the heavy modifications we did to the bike. Things that don't affect performance but affect utility of the bike would be this burrito tube we added over just a small stock tube. This one is a lot bigger and deeper, and with the mount we did to get it up on here, we made this little aluminum plate and attached it right behind where this tail light installs into, on this handrail here. In the front side, we installed this just to where this bolt is under the handrail mount itself. So that's secure and always on there for good use. Also, while we're here, the pannier rack we made to hold the bags for the long distance trip is completely made out of steel rods we bought from Home Depot and had it all welded together and bent into shape right here to make it all into just this nice square shape so we can put the bags on. The way we mounted it is right above where I showed the burrito. It's right behind this little hole where the fairing, plugs into, right onto the aluminum handle. And same with right here where the burrito mounted. We put them all together right behind this tail light, next to right on the signal. Same with on this side, same spots where we installed them. No change, but they provide very good support. They're basically on the frame, you could say. They move with the whole bike. So very secure, especially since they're steel. And when you wanted to connect them together to provide some more support, just put 2 bolts, ran it through behind where this little spot where the license plate for like longer plates for international use go. We just hooked it right behind here and zip tied it in, and it works just fine. And now for this tail box here. The way we had to install this, just under here, there's a couple mounting points here, but to make it work we had to hand manufacture this aluminum plate so we can bolt the actual plastic mount onto the plate. And it's kind of hard to show you down here, but there it is. And then with that we were able to mount this box on, and this itself is very deep and can carry a whole lot of stuff. Very good for traveling. And we also installed it just the right spot behind the passenger. Actually provides a little back support for long trips. And then for this trip in particular, this was a recent add-on. We added a fuel rack, just something that can hold on to this small 1-gallon fuel tank, because the Hawk's normal gas tank itself is pretty small. So having this as our emergency fuel will help a lot in cases wherever we need it. Just had it installed where we had the metal plate for the travel box, and we used the metal that came out of the Hawk's shipping crate back when we first got it, because that steel is pretty useful the way it's shaped and everything, so it makes a very secure little rack. Next are the fog lights we made for a lot more visibility for such as off-roading or such. Down here is how we made the mount. It's made out of steel, and we had it hooked up, bolted on to where the signal reflectors usually are, the little yellow reflectors. And all it is a bunch of L pieces all stuck together with welds held at a little bit of an angle so we can get it to point forward. And otherwise pretty simple wiring job. Have our switch right there, and just over here, light it. Kind of hard to judge from the camera, but they actually flood very well. We also installed a more digital accurate gauge over the old analog one. And this particular problem with the old one was the speedometer needle actually was, one, inaccurate, and then two, in time it broke and started spinning all over the place, completely giving the wrong details. And the factory odometer was inaccurate because we traveled way more miles than it was showing. So with this digital one, we installed it, had to hook up the new odometer down there, and for the most part it's pretty accurate. Running it on, and it gives very good details as long as you wire everything up correctly. Another thing we added were hand guards to the handlebar here. They're very good for protecting our hands in case we ever drop it, and they're made out of a solid aluminum. It's just one thing that runs throughout this entire here, and it's just got some plastic guarding it. So after seeing the stock lights, the halogen lights, we decided to switch out all the headlights and signal lights to LED. This one's, I believe, the Shark LED?
Yeah, it looks like an airplane.
And also have a smaller daytime running light there. We also switched out the signal lights to LED, which are much brighter than the previous ones. Same with the backside. And the rear, we also switched to LED, which is a lot brighter, so for our safety, so other drivers can see us. The windshield we created was made out of Lexan polycarbonate, and incidentally, this so-called beak here, we didn't intend to do this, but it kind of looks like a hawk if you look at it at the right angle. With the way it's shaped, the flow flows easier over your head and not so much on your torso, so it's a bit easier to ride higher speed and longer distance. Going on to the light modifications we did, switched out the shift lever. It's a bit easier to use, and in the event we ever drop this, it'll also bend up. It's very hard to do, but it'll bend up. The standard foot pegs also came with rubber inserts here. I took them out for a better grip and didn't need them. Added some height to it too. So with this kickstand, it's not at the regular angle it used to be, because before it leaned the bike way too much. Bike was leaned over a lot more than this, and I felt that was a little dangerous. So instead we took the cutter wheel, cut up just about here, and then bent it inward so it can be at a sharper angle, welded it up, and the bike's stance is a lot better, a lot straighter. Another thing we did was added a bunch of reflective visibility stickers. Since this bike that we got is in black color, it's hard to see at night, so with all these stickers it makes it a lot easier to spot us. Better to be seen than not to be seen. Here on the brake calipers as well, and on the swing arm, just anywhere possible. And a few accessories we added. One of them was a phone mount here. This phone mount expands out and you wrap these around the corners. I've never had any issues with this. It is super reliable, very durable as well. Had it just mounted on with the screw mount, and rubber right here just goes onto the handlebar like that, very secure. Also with this cup holder here, never had any issues with it. It holds anything perfectly fine. Also goes onto the handlebar, and with this one, it's not just a screw type, it's also a latch type. So it latches on and it's very hard to get off. So it's very secure. Also, while we're here at the handlebar, did some wiring and had this quick disconnect towards the battery up here, and which this will plug right into this USB charger here, and we can use this to keep our phones charged while the bike's running on the go. Just 2 USB ports, very convenient, and also shows out the readings here, so we can also get a little reading on the battery. Also, the gas cap we got lucky. We got the more off-road type. It's solid aluminum, and with this we also replaced the little tube that's supposed to go down into here with just a shorter tube and a little vapor breathing cap. Works very well in hot days and doesn't let a lot of fluid leak out. We also added some what these are grease nipples to the steering column, just to put in a lot of grease from our air pump we have, with a little grease gun, just to keep this all lubricated, just so in the future nothing ever erodes away from wear and tear. And we also added one for the swing arm. This one's much harder to see. See, right up there we added another grease nipple and inserted a lot of grease into the swing arm bolt. Also, for security, whenever we're taking the bike out anywhere, let's say a motel or somewhere, and we want to make sure the bike never gets any unwanted hands touching it, we installed a motion alarm system, and it's remote as well. I can make sure to lock it, and that'll happen. And it's very loud, hurts to hear, but it'll let us know if anybody's messing with our bike that we don't want. And just for peace of mind while we're on our trip, these chain tensions we have back here, one right here and the other one just over there, we added a second nut to lock the first one in, just so they never go anywhere and they keep the tension correct. And every time it rained, we always had this issue to where this rear tail light would either like flash or act really weird, and we found out it was the fact that water got into it and was messing with the LED light back there. So what we did is we took out the cover, added some weather strip around the inside right here, you can't see it, and just weather stripped it, and that way it kept the water out, and haven't had any problems, haven't seen any water inside at all. And for the trip, we're using the Shell Rotella T6 heavy duty diesel engine oil. This is normally for diesel engine vehicles, but if you look on the fine print of some of these, they also mention that you can use them for wet clutch motorcycles. So this is what we'll be using for the trip as we're going. This is just about everything we need, not for the Hawk, but also for the Suzuki DR650. And over here we have Loctite, just blue, with some duct tape. You never know when you need them. All the carburetor jets, the small ones and big ones, just for different altitudes we're going to be meeting. Bunch of zip ties. Some of the oil filters for the Suzuki. A jump starter, very simple and small, easy to use. An air pump that we also have. It's battery powered and very easy to use. We also have the kickstart for the Hawk here. The reason why we have it uninstalled right now is honestly just for comfort. The way they had it the first time, it just sticks out and digs into your calf. So we just undid it, took it out, and we've tested it in case we ever need to kickstart. We just put it back in, take it out, and then kickstart it, and it works just fine. You can just take it right back out. Brought some towels. Also have a suspension tool to adjust the height just to make it a bit stiffer or softer, however we need it on the way up. Bunch of different tools for regular maintenance or in case anything else happens. 3 hard metal tire irons, 2 more heavy duty tubes, 1 for the front and back, and also a bunch of different patches for our tires, a big tube of rubber cement, a little air gauge, 5 more spokes just in case we need them, as well as a extra bit of chain, the original 15 tooth sprocket in case we need a bit more torque for off-roading, a chain puncher just to adjust any amount of chain we need, a bunch of extra master links as well. And also for this trip in particular, we added some solar panels to the front, so in case we ever need to go camping off-road out in the middle of nowhere where there's no electricity, this will help a lot.